This is Greg Deckler, and welcome to MSHGQM. Okay, this video has two parts to it. As the title suggests, I'm going to present an unsolvable Power BI problem using a real-world scenario and not my despised -5 example. As you can see on your screen, I've given up on my beloved pickle and banana data model, and I now have a real star schema built out using AdventureWorks DW 2019 database. But that is the second part of this video. For the first part of this video, I'm going to answer the questions. Greg, why are you so hell-bent on this measure totals issue? What could you possibly hope to gain? And is this what you really want to be known for? Well, there are reasons. And there are reasons I didn't want to go into in my last video on this subject because I really don't have any kind of beef with SQL BI around any of this. My problem is how tables and matrix totals work in Power BI, and that's all on Microsoft. So if you don't want to hear me just utterly eviscerate this design of tables and matrices in Power BI, or don't care about the answers to those questions, you can just skip right on ahead. Okay, so broadly, why do I despise this design? I despise this design of tables and matrices in Power BI because their design is completely and utterly at odds with what I have to believe is Power BI's overarching design goals and philosophy. Hey, let's make a low-cost, easy-to-use, super powerful business intelligence tool that allows your average business user to create their own reports and do self-service analytics, right? The current design of table and matrices is 100% at odds with this. It's just a complete failure. And I don't, and so that's primary reason, right? And do I feel a little guilty? Do I feel a little bit of guilt? Well, absolutely I do. I've always felt this way about table and matrix measure totals. 6 years ago, instead of posting my Dealing with Measure Totals blog article, I should have started this meme campaign, right? Because I can't go back in time. That article tacitly kind of endorses that it's not really broken. I never felt that way. Okay, so what do I have to gain, hope to gain? Well, if I can move the needle on getting tables totals fixed by like a month or a week or even an hour, then I'll consider all of this effort well worth it. And if it doesn't move the needle, still worth it. It's been 7+ years, people, long past any reasonable expectation that Microsoft is going to fix this issue on their own unless somebody makes a fuss about it. And yes, I really am that petty that I will post a daily reminder to Microsoft about their god-awful design choice just so they have to live with the daily shame of it until they fix it. I really am that petty. Okay, last one. At this time, is this what I really want to be known for? That's a worry about things you can control kind of problem. Okay, I don't control that, so I don't worry about that. If somebody wants to sum up my years of contribution to the Power BI community in that way, so be it. And yes, I would wear that badge proudly as the guy that called out the horrendous design choice that it has caused pain and suffering to thousands, if not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of Power BI users. I'm proud to wear that badge. All right, let me elaborate further on just how much I despise this design of table and matrix visuals. And I'm going to do it by imagining the designers presenting this design to the product owner. Okay, so the product owner is like, okay, table and matrix guys, people, it's your turn to present your design for table and matrix visuals in Power BI. All right, Mr. Product Owner, we have come up with a brilliant design for table and matrix visuals in Power BI. Oh, sounds great. Tell me more about this brilliant design. Well, first, we know through our market research that 90 to 95% of all people expect the total to sum the rows. But for our first design choice, we aren't going to do that. We're specifically not going to give them that. Okay, and you're going to love this. So number 2, right? We've made our design so that it works in the least number of scenarios possible. So for really, really simple, like a sum or an average, it'll work. And it'll work for non-additive measures. It works flawlessly in those cases, right? Even though, real world practical applications of non-additive measures are really just distinct count and, ratios. So, it'll work in those cases, but it's the least possible number of cases that it'll work for. So number 3, so we've also decided that when a user doesn't want the default behavior, that's the user's problem. And they'll have to write some reasonably sophisticated code to fix it. Okay, now that it's the user's problem, the best part is the solution for getting what they want is different pretty much every time, depending on the measure and what's in the visual. So, there's no consistent one solution that solves everything. All right, so now that even though it's the user's problem, in certain circumstances, they can't actually accomplish what they want because it's impossible. So the product owner, is like, okay, so to summarize what I'm hearing here, we're not going to give the users what they want or expect. They will get correct totals in the least possible number of circumstances. If they don't like it, it's their problem. The solution is different every time, and sometimes a solution is impossible. And then the product owner signs off on it. Right? How is that possible? Is this the same person that signed off on broccoli flavored Jello? Right? Because nobody wants broccoli flavored Jello. And whoever signed off on that, was a moron. So it's just, where were the adults in the room when this design was being handed down? It just blows my mind. Okay. All right. It just runs so counter to, what I view as the overall philosophy for Power BI, to make a low-cost, easy-to-use business intelligence tool that puts unrivaled power into the hands of business users and non-IT professionals, allowing those users to engage in self-service, collaborative business intelligence, right? It just totally just takes that mission statement and just throws it in the garbage. This is why I hate measure totals and table matrix visuals so much. And I have to all right. Sorry, I had to pop up. So this is why I hate measure totals and tables in matrix visuals so much. They effectively ruin the entire overarching design and mission statement for Power BI, in my opinion. Okay, so we've come to the second part of this video. I promised a real-world non-5 example, so let's get started here. All right, so as you can see, I have my data model. I'm using internet sales from AdventureWorks. I got my sales territory, product, customer, date, all of that, all good, all nice, beautiful, unreal world star schema. Okay, so I have here, I've created a sum of sales amount, right? And that's just summing my internet sales measure or column. That's all that is doing. It's just a simple sum. And this total is correct. But I've created what I call, what is this trimmed measure here. And let me see if I can zoom. Okay, so think of this as kind of like a trim mean. Okay, so I want to analyze my sales, but I want to get rid of my outliers, right? So anything that is my max price or my min price, I want to exclude that from my analysis and only sum up the internet sales amounts that aren't those things. Okay, so again, this is kind of like trim mean, where you're getting rid of a certain percentage of your outliers from your measure. And yes, I know there is no trim mean in DAX. That's why I had to write one from scratch, and it was not easy. About drove me crazy, but it's out there in the quick measure gallery if you want to use it. So this is more like kind of like a trim sum, if you will. Okay. All right. So we put that into our table. I hate that feature. All right. So all right, so I've put that into my table, right? And you take these things and just for sake of clarity here, that's the wrong calculator. I want this calculator. This one can go away for the time being. So as you can see, I've summed up 65, 653, 862. I've summed up these numbers. And and you get the wrong answer. You're off by like 1 million. Okay, 22,000, and we all know why, right? Because in the context of all selected, it's trimming off just the highest price between all of these 3 categories, and just the lowest price between all of these categories. Okay, so unless they all happen to be the same, this is going to be wrong. It just is. All right, so we can get rid of that, and let's move on to the next example. So I built this out just same tables just stacked right on top of each other, because, I didn't want to have to mess around with resizing all this stuff. Okay, so now I've got my trim sales category total. So this is where an end user has drug into this visual. If I can select it, drug into this visual, just product category trim sales. Okay, I can solve and get that answer that I had before, and solve it right by doing this. So I can I can summarize by product category. Oh, I picked the wrong one. Category total. Not the smoothest, but that's okay. Trim sales category total, summarized by product category. I use my, create a column. I use my trim sales, and then I return the SumX of that column. And I get the right total. Great. Okay. But now the end user drags in subcategory into that. So they have product category, now product subcategory. And this total is wrong again, right? Because now I have to summarize by product category and product subcategory. Now I can do that, right? I can do that. Get my total where I summarize by product category, product subcategory, et cetera, and I can get the right total. But, right, now the user wants to drag in color. So they've drug color into this. Go away. They got product category, product subcategory, product color, some of our sales, am I right? And this total is wrong again. This is the right total, right? And I've created that by now I have to summarize by product category, product subcategory, product color, and get the right example. All right, and get the right total, if you will. But you have no idea. Look how many columns that the user can drag in here. Okay, there's about 19 of them. And when you get to, they could also drag in these, right? So now you're up to like 20, 24, but they could also drag in these. So now you're probably in the 30s, and they could drag in these, and now you're probably into the 40s of different things that they could drag into this table. All right, so with 20 columns, just 20 columns, the combination set is given by the formula 2 to the n. So you do 2 to the 20th, that would give you all the combinations that are possible with 20 different columns. Okay, so if we do the math, let's get rid of this. Let's just do 2 to the 20th, and we get about a million different possible combinations. Okay, and I did some math on this, and it comes out to, like, if I analyze those different measures, it comes out that it'd take an average about 200 characters to basically cover one scenario. Okay, with the is and scopes and all the other fancy nonsense that you have to do, it comes out to about 200. So I multiply this by 200, right? I come up with that I would need about 209,000 characters. Okay, so there's probably some sweats and tryhards out there on this issue. They're like, well, it's still the user's problem because they're just lazy. They could enter in all those possible, a couple million different combinations, right? But they would need over 200,000 characters, 200 million characters. Well, so I did some research on this, and I can tell you that within the DAX editor, to solve it can only accept. There's a limit, right? And it's between 2,790,621 characters and 2,800,000 characters, and it's a range because if you want to break Power BI Desktop, try entering 2,800,000 characters into the DAX editor window, and you will severely have a bad day where you basically get thrown in this loop where it's just telling you, there's a problem rendering, there's a problem rendering, there's a problem rendering, there's a problem, and you can't really get out of it. So you have to go to the task manager and you have to just end Power BI Desktop, right? So there is an actual real limitation around this. But I know how sweaty, and try-hardy the community that wants to defend this is. And they're going to be like, well, Greg, the DAX expression is a string it's represented as a string object in the tabular data model. Okay, so in a string object, it can accept up to 1 billion characters, right? Now, who knows what happens if you did a third-party tool and tried to shove 1 billion characters and then bring that report up in Power BI? Who knows? But, okay, a billion. 2 to the 23rd, so you have 23 columns, equals that number, times 200 characters for each scenario. Well, that's over a billion. So yes, it really is impossible. Okay, and I hate seeing these comments that I've seen on the LinkedIn posts and otherwhere, where it's like people are like, Greg, it's the user's problem. It's the user's problem. You know, uh, they just didn't write their measure correctly. Except you've made it impossible for them to actually create the correct measure, even if they created a third-party program which said, hey, add all my columns to here, and then click a button and it generates all the combinations, and then you try to shove it into into a DAX measure. You still can't do it. You still can't do it. It is physically impossible to do. All right. So I hope this puts to bed once and for all, like why measure totals in matrix and table visualizations is just an utterly garbage design, um, just right on its face. And it's not like any of this wasn't hard to predict. When Power BI was being brought out 7 years ago or 10 years ago or wherever it was always a stupid design. Will always be a stupid design. So that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure there's some people that didn't. Have a good day.